VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you for joining us on Crosstalk today here on the VCY America Network. Today is one of those days in which we just gather a lot of stories that have happenings that have taken place over the course of this week, and sometimes it's sharing some comment on them. Sometimes it's letting these stories go forth so you can understand and know what's going on in our nation and around the world. Stories that go unreported or underreported by a lot of media. And certainly everything that's in the news today is about this new unemployment rate, this new unemployment figure that for the first time in the Obama administration dropped below the 8% level. This was the threshold that was set by Mr. Obama as he took office, and to reach this threshold, Americans for Limited Government says that the Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics found that an astounding 873,000 people found full-time jobs last month. The finding contradicts virtually every other economic indicator, including those used by the Federal Reserve to take the immediate and unprecedented step to embark on the quantitative easing 3, which entails pumping $40 billion of new dollars into the economy every month for this foreseeable future. They say that either the Federal Reserve, which has its fingers on the pulse of every element of the economy, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics Manufacturing Survey report are grievously wrong, or the number used to calculate the unemployment rate are wrong, or worse, manipulated. Given that these numbers conveniently meet Mr. Obama's campaign promises 1 month before the election, the conclusions are obvious, they say. Well, PJ Media is saying that the U.S. employment rate, as that was reported to fall to 7.8% last month. This is dipping below for the first time, below 8% in nearly 4 years. They said many of these jobs added, though, were part-time jobs, and they're pointing out there's a contradiction with the numbers. Just 114,000 jobs were created, but more than 800,000 said they found jobs. Former CEO of GE, Jack Welch, isn't convinced that these new unemployment numbers are real. Reacting to the new figures, he tweeted this, quote, "Unbelievable jobs numbers. These Chicago guys will do anything, can't debate, so change numbers." And a quote from Jack Welch. Well, the federal government, we started our new fiscal year on October 1st. The federal government added, this is amazing, $93,245,605,914.16 to its debt on October 1st. That's the first day of fiscal year 2013. Over $93 billion added to our debt the first day of this fiscal year. CNSNews.com reports that was more than all the debt the federal government accumulated between July 4th, 1776, when the United States declared independence from England, and sometime in October of 1942, which was 10 months after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and the United States entered World War II. Astounding numbers. It's really hard to grab hold of those. Here's a story from CNSNews.com as well that President Barack Obama said in a Wednesday night in the debate that Social Security is structurally sound. However, Social Security's Board of Trustees said in their 2012 annual report that the program faced $8.6 trillion in unfunded obligations, meaning that it is currently obligated to pay $8.6 trillion more in benefits than it is anticipated to bring in through taxes. The trustees point out that a major legislative change that increased the unfunded obligation of Social Security was the cut in the Social Security payroll tax that's been advocated by President Obama. The payroll tax funds the Social Security program. WND is reporting that a top Democratic strategist and donor who served as President Obama's lead auto industry advisor recently conceded that the rationing of health services under Obamacare is inevitable. Stephen Ratner advocated that such rationing should target elderly patients while stating, quote, "We need death panels." Ratner serves on the board of the New American Foundation, or NAF. It's a George Soros-funded think tank that was instrumental in supporting Obamacare in 2010. Last month, Ratner penned an opinion piece in the New York Times entitled Beyond Obamacare, in which he proclaimed, quote, "We need death panels," and argued rationing must be instructed to sustain Obama's health care plan. His comments have been virtually ignored by traditional media. He said we need death panels. Well, maybe not death panels exactly, but unless we start allocating health care resources more prudently, rationing by its proper name, the exploding cost of Medicare, will swamp the federal budget. LifeNews.com is reporting that Tyndale House Publishers, which publishes Bibles and other Christian books and multimedia, filed a federal lawsuit Tuesday against the Obama administration's abortion pill mandate. Tyndale House is one of the world's largest privately held Christian publishers of books, Bibles, and digital media, but it is apparently not religious enough to meet the definitions the Obama administration has placed in the HHS mandate. Alliance Defending Freedom attorneys representing Tyndale have filed a lawsuit and said it is subject to the mandate because Obama administration rules say for-profit corporations are categorically non-religious, even though Tyndale House is strictly a publisher of Bibles and other Christian materials. Matt Bowman, representing ADF, said to say a Bible publisher is not religious is patently absurd. The mandate forces employers, regardless of their religious or moral convictions, to provide insurance coverage for abortion-inducing drugs, sterilization, and contraception under threat of heavy penalties. Bowman said, quote, Obamacare demands that Americans choose between two poison pills, either desert your faith by complying or resist and be punished. Fox News is reporting a story about a Philadelphia high school teacher under investigation after she reportedly, ordered a student to take off a T-shirt that was supporting Mitt Romney's presidential campaign and compared the shirt to a Ku Klux Klan sheet. The incident occurred at Charles Carroll High School in Port Richmond. When the student refused the order, she tried to throw the girl out of class. The teacher reportedly told the 16-year-old student that the high school was a Democratic school and then threatened to use a marker to cross out Romney's name. Philadelphia School District spokesman Fernando Gallard confirmed to Philly.com that a teacher made some comments to a student wearing a Romney T-shirt in the classroom. We are looking into the comments and the conduct of the teacher. Gallard said the student was well within her rights to wear the T-shirt and was not in violation of any school dress codes. First Lady Michelle Obama called contraception basic preventative care and invoked her daughters before talking about women's decisions about our bodies during a campaign fundraiser event Tuesday. The First Lady spoke at the Westin Hotel in Seattle, reports CNSNews.com. She said insurance companies now have to cover basic preventative care, things like contraception, cancer screenings, and out-of-pocket cost. Michelle Obama said, referring to the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. She said, my husband will always fight to ensure that we as women can make our own decisions about our bodies and our health care. LifeNews.com is reporting that the Obama administration is using the state of Arizona and claiming that its new law revoking taxpayer funding for the Planned Parenthood abortion business runs afoul of federal laws. The Whole Woman's Health Funding Priority Act of Arizona defunded abortion providers such as Planned Parenthood of state family planning money. The bill is based on model legislation that was developed by the Susan B. Anthony List and the Alliance Defense Fund and prioritizes family planning funds away from abortion-centered businesses like Planned Parenthood to entities that provide women with comprehensive health care. In new filings in court, representatives of the Justice Department tell U.S. District Court Judge Neil Wake that a law approved earlier this year aimed specifically at cutting off taxpayer funding to the abortion business via the state's funding of family planning programs is against the law. The abortion company sued the state of Arizona after its pro-life governor, Jan Brewer, signed the defunding bill. The federal government telling the state, you cannot drop your state dollars. You cannot defund Planned Parenthood. Okay, let's go on. Canada, though they've got an important issue coming up on October 10th. On October 10th, Canada's Supreme Court may decide when life begins. The personhood debate will be renewed on October 10th. This is the National Post is reporting there that the case of Ivana Levkovic, who is charged under Section 243 of the Criminal Code for concealing the body of her dead child, will be brought before the Supreme Court and potentially cause lawmakers to question whether a child is a person before birth. In our next segment, I'm going to be airing a clip that has just gone viral now with Mr. Obama's thoughts on that very topic. LifeNews.com is reporting that politicians in France unveiled a new budget proposal that would have the nation offering women free abortions and picking up 100% of the cost for an abortion for women who can't afford one. The change to full reimbursement was included in the 2013 Social Security budget unveiled on Monday. In a statement, the government said that the move was, quote, necessary to ensure all women have equal access to abortion. A 100% free abortion for women in France proposed for this next budget. Speaking of France, Newsmax.com is reporting that French President Francois Hollande, his first annual budget raised taxes on the rich and big companies and included a minimum of spending cuts to reduce the deficit. So here we have a budget that's going to provide 100% coverage of abortions. Well, his new 2013 blueprint relies on 20 billion euros, that's $26 billion in tax increases. That includes a 75% tax on incomes over 1 million euros and eliminating limits on the wealth tax. 75% tax on the wealthy. From the Carolina Journal News, the U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder's brother, William Holder, apparently employs illegal foreign workers at one or more of the 4 McDonald's restaurants he and his wife Deborah purchased last year in Wake County, a Carolina Journal investigation has found. The reporter made approximately 30 visits in September to observe and talk with workers at the restaurant, at least one of which has been visited by the Attorney General. The reporter was present during a conversation in which some employees stated that they did not have a Social Security number, a green card, or any other document that would give them legal authority to work in the United States. After numerous and unsuccessful attempts to speak with William Holder by phone, CJ, the newspaper, contacted the McDonald's regional corporate office in Raleigh on September 25th and shared the observations about potential illegal hiring at the Holder's McDonald's locations. Spokeswoman Elizabeth Queenville said she would respond to those observations, but by press time had not responded. You're listening to Crosstalk here on VCY America. It is a news roundup day today as we pull together a number of stories and issues from the week. And later in the program, we will give you opportunity to comment on these or current news events as well. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, did you ever believe in evolution?
Chris, I was raised in a Christian home and was taught the truth of creation from an early age. A child actually has no problem believing in creation. But when I went to college, there were days of rebellion against the Lord and His authority on my life. But I never doubted creation. I did some awful stupid things, but I really wasn't silly enough to believe that a fish could become a person. I studied engineering, and I knew how to recognize design when I saw it. This actually laid a very good foundation for my later training in geology. There might be a lesson here. Belief in creation might just be an anchor to hold rebellious kids from wandering too far away. So teach them young. Children have a much easier time going back to Genesis than adults.
To find out more about creation science, call us at 1-800-7-GENESIS or email us genesis@icr.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk here on VCY America, and just a reminder, many of your stations are holding fall share-a-thons through the course of this month or next, and we again at Crosstalk wholeheartedly encourage you to support the work of your local Christian radio ministry. We are so thankful that they make this program available to you, the listeners of their stations, and if you appreciate this program, you can show that appreciation by supporting your local Christian radio ministry. Our News Roundup Friday here today, and WND has a story. The headline caught my attention. October surprise, Obama secret Iran deal cut. Iran could announce a temporary halt to uranium enrichment before next month's U.S. election in a move to save Barack Obama's presidency, a source affiliated with high Iranian officials said. The source, who remains anonymous for security reasons, said a three-person delegation of the Obama administration, led by a woman, engaged in secret negotiations with a representative of Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The delegation urged the Iranian leader to announce a halt to enrichment, even if temporary, before the November 6 election, promising removal of some sanctions. The source said the delegation warned that a Mitt Romney presidency would change the U.S. relationship with Iran regarding its nuclear program. The U.S. representatives reminded the Iranians that President Obama has stood in front of Israel, preventing the Jewish state from attacking Iran over its illicit nuclear arms policy. CNSNews.com is reporting that Kevin O'Reilly, a member of the White House National Security Staff who regularly communicated about Operation Fast and Furious with the Arizona-based ATF agent responsible for running the operation that allowed guns to flow to Mexican drug cartels, guess what? Suddenly transferred out of the White House and into Iraq in July of 2011, it's been revealed. The transfer took place shortly after the ATF agent had testified in the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and the White House had provided the committee with a series of emails that O'Reilly and the agent had exchanged while Fast and Furious was underway. Since then, the White House has declined to allow O'Reilly to be interviewed either by the committee or by the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who conducted the administration's internal investigation of Fast and Furious. The White House also refused to give the Inspector General access to internal White House communications relating to Fast and Furious. We brought you news about the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the severe sovereignty attack this would be on the U.S. and against the parents who know the best upbringing of their own children, even disabled children. Well, Johnny and Friends came forth this week. Johnny Erickson Tata heads up a disability ministry, and in a statement they said, although Johnny and Friends recognizes that safeguards for people with disabilities in developing nations are sorely lacking, and the CRPD can provide a model for raising standards in public access, education, employment, promoting the human dignity of persons with disabilities, we do not support, listen to this, we do not support U.S. ratification. Johnny and Friends holds deep concerns regarding this Convention on the Rights with Persons with Disabilities language on parental rights and the rights of the unborn with disabilities. We are also concerned how U.S. ratification of this treaty would impact U.S. sovereignty. CNSNews.com is reporting on, as well as many media sources, a judge Tuesday blocked Pennsylvania's voter ID requirement from going into effect before Election Day, delivering a hard-fought victory to Democrats who said it was a ploy to defeat President Barack Obama and other opponents who said it would prevent the elderly and minorities from voting. The decision by Commonwealth Court Judge Robert Simpson on the law requiring each voter to show a valid photo ID could be appealed to the state Supreme Court, but Simpson ordered that the state not enforce the photo ID requirement in this year's presidential election, but will allow for it to go into full effect next year. Newsmax.com reporting that retiring longtime Senator Joe Lieberman, who was the vice presidential running mate with Al Gore, he's not decided which candidate he will vote for in this year's presidential election, saying he will wait until the moment he goes into the booth to cast his vote. Liberty Counsel has filed suit now in federal court challenging the new law that bans any counseling to diminish, eliminate, or manage same-sex sexual attractions. That's in the state of California. Liberty Counsel represents several parents and their children who are receiving and benefiting from such counseling. Several licensed counselors, the National Association for Research and Therapy of Homosexuality, and the American Association for Christian Counselors. The law forbids that kind of counseling take place to those under the age of 18. Liberty Counsel filing suit against the state. LifeSiteNews.com is reporting that California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger appeared on 60 Minutes this past Sunday when he spoke out about his affair with his housekeeper and the resulting divorce, but also revealed something that he officiated at 2 same-sex marriages when he was California governor. LifeSiteNews.com is reporting that the Russian Supreme Court has upheld the law passed by the municipal government of St. Petersburg in 2011 to ban public gay pride events. The court ruled against an appeal by homosexual activists who had complained that the ban was discriminatory. The law, which forbids the propaganda of homosexuality and pedophilia among minors, came into force this April. It provides for fines for those promoting homosexuality as normal. The homosexual political movement is not, on the whole, popular in Eastern Europe, with polls regularly showing that there is little public support for changes to laws allowing registered homosexual civil partnerships or similar issues. The Atlanta Journal is reporting the Chick-fil-A president, Dan Cathy, is reaffirming his commitment to biblical families in a weekend interview that aired over WXIA TV. It aired Wednesday of this week. Instead, he told the station that the Atlanta company is committed to families, saying families are very important to all of us that are concerned about being able to hang on to the heritage that we have, and we support biblical families. We have always been a part of that. Well, I'd like to get to this other news story here, and let's see, we'll get to it. Let me just share this. Newsmax.com. We hear about all this global warming stuff. Well, climatologists worry about the effects of global warming. Guess what? Antarctica has quietly set a new record for the greatest sea ice extent ever measured at either pole. We mentioned in this segment we would air this audio clip it's on video form, but we'll air the audio portion. President Obama steps up his outreach to appear moderate, independent, and faith-based voters in final weeks before the November 6th election. But a new video has surfaced where he calls the unborn child a potential life and argues that viability is a moving target. This was published by David Brody of CBN News Wednesday of this week. This video, this audio taken here from a 2004 campaign event in Springfield, Illinois. This is where he was running against Alan Keyes to become the Illinois senator. Unborn child as potential life. Let's listen in.
My basic view is that abortion is an extraordinarily difficult moral issue. As a Christian, I think that a fetus is not just a collection of cells. It is a potential life. And I think that after viability, it is legitimate for the state to prohibit late-term abortions as long as there is an exception for the mother's life and health. Prior to viability, the problem is that this potential life is inside someone else's body. It's inside a woman's body. And I don't feel that it is appropriate for me then to simply dictate to that person, to that woman, what she should do with her body. I leave that up to her and her conscience and her minister or rabbi. I leave that up to her family and her doctor to make those decisions. Now, one can hold that position and still suggest that this is a difficult moral issue and that people of goodwill can be on both sides of the issue. Obviously, Mr. Keyes believes that life begins at conception. Although I have not examined this closely, I think he has concerns about in vitro fertilization and contraception and a whole host of other issues. But we don't. I may share that belief, but if someone else doesn't, that essentially is a religious argument. One of the things about this country is that we don't impose our religious views on others, particularly in a situation in which we would then seek to restrict how other people deal with their own bodies.
How do you define viability? When does that occur?
Well, there's this, obviously it's been a moving target because science is continually advancing, and that's something that the law has had to adapt to over time. What was viable 30 years ago is obviously not the same as what is viable today. But the point is that if we as a society make a decision, or if science and technology has determined that this child can live outside the womb, then that changes the moral equation in ways that are not true if the fetus lives inside the womb.
You're defining viable as being able to live outside the womb on life support.
That's generally what the law has suggested.
Well, you hear the video clip that took place here. It was in a business. It looked like it was a restaurant or something. That's why you heard phones ringing in the background there. But this video just surfaced here Wednesday of this week again. This was at a 2004 campaign event in Springfield, Illinois, saying that a fetus is not just a collection of cells, it is a potential life. And I think that after viability, it is legitimate for the state to prohibit late-term abortions. I just wonder if this is why he voted against a law that was to protect a child that was determined to be aborted and the abortion failed and was born alive, that life should be protected. Mr. Obama could not bring himself to vote for that. I see that we're just seconds away from a break, and I'd like to open the phone lines to get your comments on these stories, or perhaps you want to comment on some other current event news issue that is going on. Our telephone number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Maybe you want to share your perspective on this statement that not just a collection of cells, but a fetus is a potential life. Our number here to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. We've talked about certainly the new jobs numbers here today. We've talked about the associate with the Obama administration here talking about needing to have death panels. I mean, we have to ration our health care because otherwise we're going to run out. We've covered a number of stories, and if you'd like to comment, our number here, 800-733-9829. This is Crosstalk on the VCY America Network.
On a national level, the Secretary of Defense has warned of cyber terrorism and the devastation such an attack could bring. On a personal level, computers and the Internet continue to revolutionize the way we live. But is our increasing dependence on these technologies stealing our privacy and setting us up for a devastating fall? In the book Cyber Meltdown, biblical apologist Ron Rhodes addresses Bible prophecy and the imminent threat of cyber terrorism. He examines what a cyber attack in the U.S. would look like. What new technologies seem to be paving the way for fulfillment of end-times prophecies in the Bible? How terrorists and opposing nations are using cyberspace as a weapon? How computer viruses spread and personal privacy has been compromised? To obtain your copy of Cyber Meltdown, send a donation of $17 or more to VCY America, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. To donate by phone, call 1-800-729-9829.
You're listening to Crosstalk here on VCY America, and it's a News Roundup Friday here today, gathering a number of stories and issues that either go by unreported or underreported, and just bring them to your attention. If you want to comment on these or other current event news issues, our number here to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. We're going to begin with Andy calling in from Milwaukee. You're on the air, Andy.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. First, I just wanted to say, God bless you in your ministry. And me, myself, I've come to know the Lord Jesus Christ as my Lord and personal Savior. And I think in general, as a whole, a lot of what I hear in the news about the presidency and just world events disturbs me because, to me, it doesn't seem like either candidate really wants to change anything. I mean, yes, they talk a good game on television, on radio, but I think it's more about their agendas when they get in there. And I remember you made a comment one time about you don't look to your salvation to come from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and I'm on that same page. And I think, in light of all the negativity, it's negative. Everything's negative. Bash ads against Obama and Romney alike, so I'm going to exercise my right not to vote, and I do have that right as an American citizen to not vote because I don't think it matters if Obama gets reelected, if Romney gets reelected. Can one man really, change what's happened over years and years and years? I mean, once the deficit gets into the billions,
Andy,
let alone the trillions, it's like 4 years ain't going to fix it, 10 years ain't going to fix it, and I'm praying that Jesus comes back soon. Mm-hmm. It's just going to get worse and worse, and there's nothing really positive.
Well, Andy, I appreciate your comments here. I guess I would like to challenge you to reconsider your plan not to vote. This election, keep in mind there are different visions that are cast by those running for office. I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but let me also say this, that the presidency is one that determines every cabinet-level office and the policies that will be carried down through that cabinet-level office. The presidency is one that also determines who is picked for the federal judiciary, who is picked for the Supreme Court nominees. There could be as many as 4 that step down in this next 4-year period. The president was one who's going to cast the nomination for that individual. But even beyond the presidency, there are other issues that are very much here that enter into play. If you look at some of the biblical issues as to the respect for human life, there's a vast difference between the candidates. When you look at this topic of same-sex marriage, there's vast difference between the candidates. When you take a look also that we are electing a full United States Congress, we're electing 1/3 of the United States Senate. The Senate is the one that ratifies or does not ratify UN treaties that come before us. Some states are electing governors. Some are electing state legislatures. Some have referendum questions as to how we define marriage in our state. So to stay home in light of all these things going on, Andy, I don't think is a great solution.
I will take that into consideration. I thank you for taking my call, and God bless you and your ministry. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. To Mason, you're on the air. Go ahead.
My point is about abortion. Everyone knows it's wrong. You call a cow that has a baby a calf, or a colt with a horse, but why do we call a human baby a fetus? That's wrong. The Bible says it clearly. The Lord says, I knew you before I knit you in your mother's womb.
Yeah. I
mean, how much more plainer can you get than that?
Thank you, Mason. Appreciate your call. Our number here to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Tom in South Dakota, you're on the air.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. Just a couple comments. As far as the abortion issue, I think it's wrong. And from what I heard through the static on my radio from President Obama talking about it's the woman's body, it's a woman's right. Well, okay, if it's a woman's right to choose what she does with her bodies, why do the lawmakers make prostitution illegal? Because that's a woman's body. And, oh, mercy, I could go on, but that's one point I wanted to make.
Mm-hmm.
abortion is wrong, so is prostitution. They can outlaw one, but they don't outlaw the other. And why is that?
Tom, thanks for raising the question today. To John in West Milwaukee, you're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon. Couple of thoughts there. I'm pro-choice. I think that the baby should have a choice to be born. And you look at Tyndale House, and why are they messing with something that was never a problem to begin with? And now they're trying to get the lawyers involved in everything here. The government, Big Brother, is involved in everything. You look at...
well, the government has a mandate, and Tyndale House said, hey, that violates our convictions though they're a for-profit company.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't understand this mandate. Where did this come out of the blue?
It came out of the Obamacare.
That's what I'm saying. Why are they messing with it? It doesn't make sense. And you also got them trying to control what we eat, like in school and everything.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Appreciate you raising the point. Next to Sylvia. Go ahead. You're on the air.
I'm sorry. I didn't think he was done. But anyway, I'm just calling to respond to Andy saying that it doesn't make a difference whether you vote or don't. It's so important this time, just like you said. And there are so many different views with the right to life, what the people are talking about, and what we already are losing our religious freedoms, and we're going to lose even more with Obamacare because people that cannot afford insurance, they have been said that they will go to jail, and people don't believe that. They think that won't happen, and people are just not listening to what's going on, and it's very disturbing and distressing.
Thank you, Sylvia, for sharing your thoughts here today. To the state of Florida, Cindy, go ahead. You're on the air.
A lot of our medical terminology is from the Latin language, and they particularly use the word fetus because it does mean baby. That's what the original word is. Fetus means baby, so they just kept the Latin word for it. And they're saying, oh, that's not a baby, that's a fetus, but fetus equals baby.
Yeah, except in our nomenclature today, it is such that there are those who will utilize fetus, even though it's an accurate term, to give dehumanization to that child.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Cindy.
Yes.
Our number 800-733-9829. Marty in Adams, you're on the air.
Yeah, Jim, I just heard you guys talking about the importance of voting, and that and I had a question. If there was one issue that was above all else that we should, as Christians, consider in politics, what would it be?
What's your response to that?
My response would be the abortion issue. If there was anything that would be above all else, it'd be the life that God has given us. And it seems to me that one thing that I never hear anybody raise is that since its inception, abortion, the Roe v. Wade case, happened on the Republican watch and was actually voted in by Republican-appointed justices. And, in fact, the only two dissenters, the one that wrote the opinion was Byron White, who was actually appointed by one of two that was appointed by Democrats. And if you fast forward to 92, to the Casey versus Planned Parenthood decision, which to my knowledge is the only real challenge that we ever had to the Roe v. Wade, in that time of all the justices that were there for Roe v. Wade, they were all replaced except for that Byron White and Chief Justice Rehnquist.
Yeah, I don't have the breakdown of all the justices, Marty, but I do know this, that I've looked at the planks of the party platforms that have come forth from the major parties. You'll find a definite disagreement between the two party platforms as it relates to this topic of abortion. Appreciate you raising the question here today. Folks, I'd like to make you aware of a website that will help you as you consider the issues. It is a nonpartisan website, but it is one that asks you questions. It'll ask where you stand on different issues. And then as you give your response to the various questions that are on the website, then you will see the candidates emerge that mirror your viewpoints. You will be able to ask, the website will ask you where you stand on this issue of abortion. And when here's the question, for instance, do you generally support pro-choice or pro-life legislation? You click, and as you click on that, you see the candidates' pictures come closer to you, and the ones who disagree with you move further to the back. You'll see that same issue on matters pertaining to marriage. Do you, as it relates to the marriage issue as well, the question is, do you support same-sex marriage, yes or no? So it asks you the questions, and then the candidates emerge that mirror or reflect your viewpoint. And you'll see all the candidates there from the Democratic, Republican, Libertarian, the Green Party, the Constitution Party, the Justice Party. And here's the website that you can check on this yourself. It is, again, it's nonpartisan, but you can also do this with your congressional candidates and Senate candidates. It is votesmart.org. Votesmart.org. That is so you can vote with knowledge. You can vote with intelligence to learn what the different candidates' views are on the issues. On the left side of the page, you'll see a section on Vote Easy. And so you click on that, and that's where those questions will come up, and you can put in your responses. And there are numerous issues that are there, not just those issues, but Afghanistan, on the budget, the economy, education, energy, environment, guns, health care, the matter of immigration, Social Security, national security. You fill out the responses, and then you'll see what candidates best reflect your position. So I would certainly commend the site to you as one that is nonpartisan, and you can see as you respond to answers that reflect your view how the candidates match up to you. That's votesmart.org. Let's go back to the lines. We have Deborah calling from Wisconsin. Go ahead, you're on the air.
I wanted to thank VCY because the Bible says, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. And, I mean, VCY, I've dealt with churches that seem apathetic on this issue, and I don't believe they're passionate enough. And VCY just has a passion for giving a voice to the voiceless. But President Obama, as a woman, this is not my body. I am bought with a price, and Jesus' blood paid that price. So, and I have to give an account to my Creator, good or bad, for what I've done in this body. And a people yet unborn shall declare his righteousness. And the Lord hates hands that shed innocent blood. But I just don't agree with President Obama, and he doesn't define when life occurs. God does, and he knows us before we're born.
Yeah, a very separate, distinct human being, even having a blood type different than its mother's. Thank you for your call here today. We have a break, and we'll come back to more phone calls here to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Some within the Word of Faith, false teaching, proclaim that Jesus became a sinner on the cross. Some of them teach that Jesus had to spend time in hell because he became a sinner for us. Some teach that he had to become born again. Many take 2 Corinthians 5:21 out of context, where it says, "For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us." We've been talking about this in our last couple commentaries. John MacArthur says, God made him to be sin. Well, what does that mean? That important phrase requires a careful understanding. It does not mean that Christ became a sinner. The above-mentioned verse, establishing his utter sinlessness, unequivocally rules out that possibility. As God in human flesh, he could not possibly have committed any sin or in any way violated God's law. It is equally unthinkable that God, whose eyes are too pure to approve of evil, would make anyone a sinner, let alone his only Son.
We're taking your calls here today on Crosstalk to Dolores in Muskego. You're on the air, Dolores.
Oh, hi. Thank you. A few calls ago, that man who called up and said the baby was not I can't think. I'm not saying it right. That the baby was not a separate body, that it was the mother's body, that they were concerned. She was concerned with her body, and I say no, the baby is a separate body. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you said it before, but I just want to say it again. You know, for people who don't know that, the baby is a separate body, not the mother's body. So
thank you, Dolores.
Yes.
To Belgium, and David, you're on the air.
Hi. I want to call about the fellow who mentioned he didn't want to vote because he doesn't like the process or doesn't like the country. And I think just like Esther was told by Mordecai that, hey, you've come into the world for such a time as this to take action. I think that every believer who's listening to this has to realize that, hey, this might be, we have a social responsibility in this country, and we should be taking that seriously when we have these rights to vote.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy with either party, well, find a third party you want to vote for, but you have to do something to make your voice heard.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that as Christians, we have a responsibility to this country as a citizen of this country. I know it's a citizen in heaven as well, but we have a responsibility to affect the outcomes of elections as best we can.
Thank you, David, for your thoughts today. Judy in Kenosha, you're on the air.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. Very good show today. My thoughts are on, a woman's right to her body and about the abortion issue. And a woman's right to her body, first of all, is not to get pregnant. And if you're going to get pregnant, then you haven't the right to kill that innocent child. It was your choice to begin with. Your choice then should be, if you don't want to keep that child, then give it up for adoption. There's a lot of people that would like to have children that can't have children of their own. And it's just totally against, why are we killing our babies? It makes me sick.
Yeah.
And about the same-sex marriages. The gentleman that said about not voting, as a Christian, you may not agree with each candidate's views or to see how they can change the country, but you've got to look at where they're standing on those two very important issues. And those are God's issues. And to not vote, I think you'll be held accountable for it someday. We need to get out and vote God's issues on it. And those are two very important ones. And there's only one candidate running that I feel is standing with God's principles. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Judy, for sharing your thoughts here today. Keep in mind that the election is more than just one office on the ballot, okay? Dorothy in Illinois, you're on the air.
Yes, don't cut me off after the first thing I say, because I've got about 4 angles.
Well, I've only got a couple minutes and lots of callers lined up here.
Well, okay. Well, anyway, it was about the abortion issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's murder. It don't matter how you look at it. And if all those 1 million of babies that we've murdered were not, and by this time they would have been working and putting money into our Social Security fund, which they claim is low, but it's low because they stole our money, and as long as the president bailed out a lot of other businesses that didn't need it, they should bail out and put the money back that they stole from us, or else put them in jail for embezzlement. And another way of looking at these babies that weren't born, had they been born, we might have had a very world-famous, very important man born that would have been a godsend today. He might have been a good preacher. He might have been a good lawyer. He might have been a good...
Yeah, and Dorothy, I'm convinced regardless, every child has value, regardless if that person would have, regardless if that would have been a great scientist or not, but every child indeed does have value. Thanks for calling today.
Well, okay.
West Dallas, Brad, you're on the air.
Hi, Jim. I'd like to put an end to this woman's body thing. The baby has its own separate blood supply. And a lot of the times, the blood supply is of a different blood type. than the mother. The baby's got its own different DNA, and roughly half the time the baby is male. So there is no way that this is part of the woman's body. And as for not voting, one of the previous callers hit it on the head. Jesus, at the judgment seat of Christ, Jesus is going to bring up, I gave you a vote. What did you do with it? You sat there with a remote control in your hand, or did you go out and vote? Did you vote for the guy that was best after a prayerful session? You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate you saying it.
Thank you.
Germantown, Douglas, you're on the air.
Hi. One main reason for me voting and the decision I make is going to be what is the spiritual belief of the candidates. You know, we look at Obama and people say he's a Muslim, whether he is or isn't. You know, even if he is, I know one thing for sure, Romney is a Mormon, and the last time I looked at my Bible, Joseph Smith was not in it, and, you know, Mormons, as just as much as Muslims are trying to destroy this country, not only the country but the world, so I think we need to look at both candidates and what are they, what kind of God do they serve? Is it a false God, or is it the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Do they serve Jesus Christ? Is Jesus Christ their Lord and Savior? If there's anything besides that, it's a false religion. I think that should be a main driving force. So
thank you, Douglas.
Who Christians vote for. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments here today. And I guess you need to apply that consistently with all your your different election issues here at that point as well. But keep in mind, this is not the election of a pastor for a nation. This is the civil leader, as we find in Romans 13. We have a few seconds left. Ron in Wisconsin, you're on the air.
Yeah, I would like to comment on the false figures that have been given out on unemployment getting less. I'm one of those people that lost their job in the past, and I continue to fill out loads and loads of applications. I was well qualified for many of the jobs, and they never call you. And I, like many other people, have gone through their extended unemployment, and that ran out. And I, like many other people, went over the edge of the cliff. We're not registered. Nobody knows where we are. We're not counted. And I would say these figures that are given out, that's just a ploy that the politicians are using to keep their jobs. That's all it is.
Thank you, Ron, for your thoughts. We've run out of time today here on Crosstalk. We thank you for tuning in. As we talk about the issues of vital concern, the bottom line, folks, let's be praying for this election. Pray for our nation.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the Internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.